Hi folks, welcome back to my channel. In today's episode, I'll be sharing with you my cabin crew journey and how I was able to become a flight attendant here in Canada. So if you're interested in seeing this, please keep on watching. But before anything, for those of you who are new to this channel, hello, my name is Michelle. I'm a Filipino-Canadian who mostly does videos about travel, flight attendant, Disney, ASMR, beauty, and lifestyle in general. So if you're interested in seeing more of these videos, please hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll get an update as soon as I have uploaded a video. And that's all you need to do. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Congratulations! Am I vlogging? And I see myself.
So before I was able to achieve that, I actually went through so much. And to be honest, I don't know how I will start as there were so many things that happened, but I thought it'll be best if we do a little bit of flashback and actually start from when this little dream of mine began in the Philippines.
As a kid, I've always been fascinated with planes. In fact, I had my very first plane ride when I was only 2 weeks old. I know it's not ideal for a 2-week-old baby to fly, but we actually had to go somewhere important. My desire to become a flight attendant did not come until later though, when I, along with some relatives, took a vacation to Hong Kong. On our flight home to the Philippines, one of the flight attendants at that time stood out among the rest of the cabin crew members. I don't know exactly what I saw in her, but I know for a fact that she became an inspiration to me. She became one of the reasons why I wanted to become a flight attendant.
So yes, that was the start of it. I do even remember being high school in the Philippines and we had to do some sort of play, I believe, in which the scene was pretty much inside a plane and I happened to be the flight attendant. I actually came up with some sort of safety announcement, which to be honest, I still have the little notebook here, and if I can just quickly give you guys a bit of the safety demo announcement that we came up, or I guess I came up with. So this is actually what it says. Welcome aboard and thanks for flying with us. We're committed to making your flight safe and comfortable. So before we depart, we're just going to make a brief safety presentation. This information can help you if there's an emergency, so it's important that you pay attention. So guys, I did write it down here in this notebook, and I believe this was back in 2007 or 2008. Despite me having that little dream, I would say I never actually gave it too much thought, just because this was back in the Philippines when I was still living there. I never knew that we were even gonna go to Canada. So just the thought of becoming a flight attendant there is a little bit hard in the sense that we all know that Asian airlines, or for example, the airlines in the Philippines, they're a little bit on the strict side. And I say this because I do know that they are very particular in the physical aspect of, or physical appearance of someone who's really interested in becoming a flight attendant. So you gotta have a nice or a good set of teeth in which you can smile beautifully, or say for example the height. They have some sort of requirements for that as well. And I believe they also care about your eyesight. If you have a really bad eyesight, which I do, I'm probably not gonna be able to even go to the next stage of the hiring process. So that's the reason why I never really took it seriously. And also in 2009 we moved to Canada. We started living here, so that was sort of just like a dream in a sense that I never really took it seriously. We went to Canada. I had to finish my secondary school, so that's grade 10, 11, and 12. And then I also had to be working part-time as a barista. After high school graduation, I actually wasn't too sure of what I wanted to be. or which program I should be taking in college or in university, but I do know that I was and I still am interested in the tourism industry, partly because I do love traveling, but also I was interested in each of the sector of the tourism. So whether that be the food and beverage, the events, the transportation, and so on. And I also was interested not just on the consumer side of the industry, but also on the business side, the producer side of the industry. So I always wanted to learn more about this whole tourism industry. But after high school, I did end up taking some general studies at one of the colleges here in Canada. I took the courses as a prerequisite for a specific program that could offer me a more stable job, if you will, but it wasn't the tourism industry. But at the end of the day, I always found myself questioning, and I thought there was always something missing. Maybe because I wasn't really happy in what I was doing. So to make the long story short, I actually ended up pursuing the first choice of mine, and that is to pursue a job, hopefully a career in the tourism industry. So in 2013, I enrolled in a private college for a travel, tourism, and flight attendant programs. That program took me 10 months to complete, and we pretty much learned about the tourism industry. So again, more on the business side of it, the back end, producer side. I also did learn about the aviation industry, specifically in the world of flight attendants. So I did learn about proper grooming, the terms, in the aviation terms, I mean. And then I also learned about how to properly prepare for an interview and stuff like that. We also had to do a mock flight in which we pretty much go through a basic day-to-day life of a flight attendant. Started off by greeting the guests, serving them, and also having an emergency scenario in which we have to sort of evacuate the mock plane. Finally, in 2014, I got my diploma in the tourism, or in the travel tourism flight attendant program that I took in college. And at this point, honestly, I would have, or I could have just applied for a flight attendant position, but I actually purposely did not look for an opening, a job opening for a flight attendant position at this time, just because deep down I was still craving to learn more about the tourism industry that I really love. And the college that I went to happened to have a partnership with a university here in Vancouver. So to make the long story short, I was able to transfer that particular, my credits, my diploma credits, to the university. And I actually, in 2015, I finally started my degree in tourism management. So I learned so much. I actually did not regret putting that flight attendant dream on hold at this time, just because I learned so much in the 3 years that I was in university. So we learned about marketing, strategy, events, finance, and all these things, and mostly on the corporate side anyway. So I'm hoping that perhaps in the future, actually, this is one of my goals, to be able to work for this side of the tourism industry. As mentioned, it took me 3 years to finish my degree, and in 2018 I finally achieved and got my degree in tourism management. At this point in time in 2018, just after I graduated from university, I was still working as a part-time barista. I was craving for some more growth in my career, or in the job that I was at, in a sense that 8 years as a barista for me was enough time to be able to really master the skill of customer service, really hone that, and grow in the industry of food and beverage. In those 8 years, I pretty much was able to get enough experience for me to put myself out there and really try something new. I wanted to gain more experience at a different sector of the industry that I actually studied for. To make the long story short, I had to quit being a barista and try for something new. In the middle of 2018, two people that I know who happened to work for a Canadian airline here in Canada talked about an opening of a flight attendant position that's specifically a Vancouver base. position. For those of you who are not too familiar about this, getting a position, an opening for a flight attendant position specifically on a base that you currently reside is really amazing, because some flight attendants actually would have to commute. Say for example, if they live in Vancouver and the position that they had applied for was in a different hub, say in Calgary, and they got the position, they will actually have to commute from Vancouver to Calgary and start their quote-unquote shift in that specific base that they were hired for. So I thought this was a really good timing, because I just finished university and there's a Vancouver base opening, and I thought there's nothing to lose in giving this a try. I actually applied for a bilingual flight attendant position specifically based in Vancouver. Now, I do speak Tagalog or Filipino language fluently on top of English, and one of the languages on the list was actually Tagalog, so it was really perfect for me. I actually applied online through their official website. I filled up a bunch of information, attached my resume, and then I just submitted the application. I'm actually not too sure how long I had waited for that first process, but I remember maybe a few days or a week after, they actually emailed me back. They said that my resume was really nice and that it stood out, and that I passed and will be going forward with the hiring process. Just want to quickly point out that every person's experience is different. This is based on what I had gone through. Some people had gone through something totally different from what I had experienced. After that first conversation with the HR person, they sent me an email with a link because I had to do a video interview. When I had to do the video interview, I actually thought I was going to be speaking or going to have a conversation with someone on the other end of the line, just like a Skype conversation, something like that. But it was actually an automated video interview, if that makes sense. So they're going to be recording your answers. There is like a screen that has a bunch of questions. You're going to go through each one of them, and then you're going to record yourself, and then you're just going to pretty much vlog, I would say, and then you're just going to submit the video interview once it's all done. The questions in that specific video interview that I did were different in a sense that they asked me about a scenario, perhaps. I can't quite remember what it was, but a scenario that I was able to solve, for example. They also asked me what makes me happy. Something's really simple, but you kind of have to think about your answer, if that makes sense. The question of what makes me happy, for example, really came as a surprise in a sense that I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting something really formal and really more about the company, and I was expecting obviously the behavioral questions, scenarios, stuff like that. And just a quick tip when you're doing a video interview, for example, just be natural, be yourself, be confident in your answers, and also do your research. That's really a given. Be properly groomed and just have fun, because that's what I did. Literally, that's what I did. I was just having fun answering the questions. And yeah, I did pass the video interview. After passing the video interview, they sent me another email in which I will now have to do the language test. As mentioned, I applied for a bilingual cabin crew member here in Vancouver, and I speak English and Tagalog, or the Filipino language, fluently. They must assess that you actually speak the language fluently. I had to do my language test online. They had provided me a link on that email that they sent me after passing the video interview, and I pretty much had to just follow the instructions. This wasn't a video interview in a sense that I wasn't really being filmed or being recorded. I just had to sit in front of a laptop. I had to have like an earphones with a microphone, of course, with me. And then once you're all set up, you're going to be facing the computer with questions that you're gonna have to answer one at a time. So there's a screen in there that has the question, one question written out in the language that you do speak. Once you've really given a thought of your answer, you're just gonna click record, I believe, and then you're given 30 seconds to answer that specific question. I can't quite remember all the questions that they had asked, obviously, but I do remember that they were asking me something to do with the economy of the country that I am currently living in, something to do with the housing in the city that I'm currently living in, and of course this is all in Tagalog. So to summarize, I guess the questions that they were asking were topics that were a little bit on the deeper side. I guess for them to be able to say that, hey, you can converse in such topics in your own language and do it fluently. That makes sense. So after the language test, I was invited over for an in-person interview. Yes, guys, there's so many things that go into the hiring process of being a flight attendant, but I guess it's all worth it if you're really passionate about what you're going to do or what you're doing. To make a long story short, I was invited over for an in-person interview, and this is with someone, an HR representative from that specific company, and the interview was actually a one-on-one interview. I know sometimes they also do like a panel or a group interview, but in my case specifically, it was just a one-on-one interview. During the in-person interview, I would say that the questions that they had asked me weren't as hard as the previous ones from my video interview, from my language test. It's more of like scenarios, behavioral questions, and a bit of company background. So I was only in that interview for about 20 minutes, the most I would say, so it wasn't even that too long. After the in-person interview, I just went home, waited for a few more emails. So basically, at this point on, you're gonna be put in a pool, or I was put in a pool of candidates, and we were just pretty much waiting for a training date, an available training date for the actual flight attendant training class that we were gonna attend. I would say this was late 2018. Something happened with the airline, and to make the long story short, they did not need more flight attendants at that time. So even though I was put in a pool, that did not actually guarantee me a position of a flight attendant, just because you're still waiting for a training date. You're going to be put in a pool. If you did not get a training date for yourself, you're pretty much out of the game. Just because I passed all of these interviews doesn't guarantee me a job just yet. How frustrating does that sound, right? Unfortunately, that did not happen, because in January 2019, really early January 2019, I got an email and they said that they were not at that time looking for more flight attendants, and they were not pushing through with the training. However, the HR person said that they will keep me, or keep my files there, and if there is another job opening, a flight attendant job opening, they will be in contact with me and they will put me in priority. So can you guys just imagine how frustrating, how disappointing that was for me, because I've gone through all of these hiring process and then bam, it was gone, just like that. Even though that happened to me, I still kept a positive attitude, because the hiring process from the video interview to the language test to the in-person interview was really a good experience for me, because again, I learned something. So it wasn't totally a waste of my effort and time, although I must say it was really disappointing because I felt like I was too close yet too far, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's exactly what happened, and I kind of just accepted it. I still wanted to work for the tourism industry, so I went out and still looked for jobs in the tourism industry. In February 2019, I finally got a job in the accommodation sector of the tourism this time around, and I must say I will never regret that specific job, because I did learn so much. I specifically worked as a guest service agent, more on the back house of the company, and I was dealing with a lot of emails, phone calls, still customer service based. Yes, I did learn so much in the accommodation industry as well. It was really a great experience for me. In late 2019, I would say this was around October, November, I actually received an email from the airline that I had previously applied for, and they said that they're actually hiring again for a flight attendant position, specifically in Vancouver base, and if I was interested, I'd just give them an email and they would actually pull my file out and they would prioritize me because I've already gone through all of those hiring process from the video interview to the in-person interview before, so pretty much they will skip some of the process. To be honest, I actually was already disappointed in a sense that I didn't want to get my hopes up again. So I kind of like just brushed off the email. I just totally pretty much ignored it. Some days I would find myself rereading that specific email and then I would just brush it off again. And that really made me think, should I still give them another chance? Because deep down I wanted to. This was one of my dreams. I'm really close to achieving it again, but I also did not want to get my hopes up and be disappointed one more time. But one of the people I know really, I would say, encouraged me to still give it a try and just decide later on, because you have nothing to lose if you're going to give it another try, right? Then finally, sometime in November, I actually replied to the email. I know it was a little bit late, but I thought to myself, if this is really for me, I would still have a spot. They will still give me a chance. They will still invite me over for an interview if needed be. So that's what I did. I replied to the email, and then a few days after I did, the HR person who I actually met already before, they emailed me back and invited me over for an interview, an in-person interview. And they said that I would not have to do the video interview, the language test and whatnot. They just needed to see me again because they have not seen me in person for almost a year. This time around though, I wasn't really expecting too much because I told myself, you know what, Michelle, just go for it. If it's really meant for you, things will happen at the right time and you're not gonna even have to worry about trying to fit or trying to force yourself in really getting this, because if it's meant to be, you're gonna have it. To make the long story short, I went for the interview. It was more of like a formality interview, although they actually asked me another behavioral question. It was more of a presentation about the company itself, and the HR person just went through everything, like the benefits, the salary and whatnot. Anyway, after that particular interview, I just went home, waited for the email. I believe it was a day or two after that specific in-person interview. The HR person called me and offered me pretty much a training date. How amazing was that? Because the first time around, I never got a training date. But this time, she was like, hey Michelle, I have a training date for you. Will you be willing to, or will you be interested in the position still? You can say I was shocked because pretty much I had to make the decision right there and then. But yes, I did take the offer. However, she mentioned that even though I was already, I guess, guaranteed a training date, I still have to do a bunch of things. So in short, I had to do a drug and alcohol test. And then after that, I had to do a physical test, in which I'll have to do a bunch of lifting and reach test, if that makes sense. And then once I pass that, I'll actually have to do a specific first aid course that I must have for me to be able to go and have the training in Calgary. Everything just felt right at that moment. It fell in the right place. I did not have to force myself and make, you know, like change my schedule around all of these requirements that she was asking. So I thought maybe that was a sign that this is the right time and this is actually really for me. It was sad enough that I actually had to say goodbye to my colleagues in my previous work, and I'll forever be grateful. Like, it's such a wonderful 11 months with them. It was actually a really hard decision for me to make, but at the end of the day, I don't want to keep wondering about the what ifs, you know. Like, I'd rather say, hey, I gave it a try. If I did fail, so be it, but at least I gave it a try. I don't want to be thinking about all the what ifs, you know, because we only live once. As cliche as it may sound, yes, it is true, and I want to be able to live my life to the fullest and be able to do the things that I want to do. And then in late January 2020, I was finally sent to Calgary to train for a whole month. Intense training, you guys. It was really one of the toughest months of my life to this day, because we had to learn pretty much about the company, the aviation industry, the specific aircraft type that I will be able to fly as a flight attendant anyway. But a month in Calgary really sort of changed me. I met some awesome people. We have been through so much. I studied and I studied so much. I felt like I was actually back in university, in the sense that I was so busy pretty much every single day. I would say 5 hours of sleep the most in those days when we were training in Calgary, because again, it was really intense and you gotta take it seriously. I believe we have like 8 or 9 written exams that we must pass or get at least 85%, and you can only have 2 lifelines, in a sense that you can fail 1 or 2 tests or 2 exams, but after that you're pretty much out. So the fact that I was there training in Calgary doesn't even guarantee me a spot or a position as a flight attendant. I must first pass the whole course. After that February training in Calgary, I finally got my aviation wings, or my flight attendant wings, and that was really one of the best days of my life. Just being able to see that, hey, I graduated, all of the hard work has been paid off. Such a great achievement, you guys. And you know, just looking back from the start, from when I was just dreaming about this and I did not even think I would actually be able to say that, hey, I'm a qualified flight attendant, it was just a really emotional moment for me. And then finally I had to go back to Vancouver, start my journey as a flight attendant, and first of all, I had to pass my line in indoctrination that they call, in which if you actually pass that, you're pretty much just going on a flight with someone, like a supervisor, if you will, who's gonna assess you for one last time. And if you did pass that line in doc, you're pretty much good to go. You're just like, hey, I'm actually a legit flight attendant. And I did pass my line in doc, and it was just a great experience for me. For those people who don't know, the job of flight attendant is not just serving cookies or pretzels and whatnot. It's more about safety. It's making sure that each guest is safe, and that you as a flight attendant know everything from the emergency to the evacuation, and that you're confident enough to protect all of these guests on board. Anyway, everything was so great up until COVID-19 happened. What a bummer. But I mean, it's such an unfortunate event and we can't really do anything about it at the moment. I'm just really grateful for the fact that I'm healthy, my family's healthy, the people I love are healthy. And despite this dream of mine being short-lived at the moment, I would say, I did not regret everything that I've gone through, because I learned so much and I was still able to say that I achieved a long time dream, a long time goal that I had since pretty much when I was 13. When this COVID-19 happened, I was still in the middle of learning the job itself, like really being up there and doing the job as a flight attendant. So it's really unfortunate for me to be able to stop for now, and who knows what's gonna happen after this, right? But I'm taking it one day at a time, as that's all we can do for now. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that if we do take my cabin crew journey, for example, we plan things in life, and it's really good that you have a plan. It just shows that you have a goal that you want to achieve, and that you have something that you want to look forward to, and your life is just not all over the place. However, life tends to just happen, and we take a lot of detours. You know, you plan something, something else happens, and that's just really normal. And even though we take a lot of detours, we learn from those detours. I know it's so unfortunate to be able to stop this whole thing again at the moment, but I can't really change what's happening in the world right now. I'm just praying and hoping that better days will be coming. I would also want to say that don't ever lose hope. For the people who want to become a flight attendant and you think that things are just impossible, if it's really for you, you'll actually eventually get it. You'll actually eventually achieve it. Just look at my example. I never thought about becoming a flight attendant actually, because even though it was a dream, even though it was one of my goals, there were so many things that stopped me from wanting to become one. But I never lost hope, and here I am now. And this is the perfect time to end the vlog, I would say. And just like a little quote here from the famous Walt Disney, and it says, "If you can dream it, you can do it." And I do believe in that because I once just dreamt about it, and here I am now. Just keep a positive attitude, believe in yourself, dream about it, and make it happen. My name is Michelle, and this is my cabin crew journey.